Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Sister Wives with Mary Jane K. Today, I'll be giving my commentary on Season 2, Episode 6, Polygamist Party. To all my YouTube listeners, if you could please like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. I would love to have that community tab and to grow the community because I love doing this. I enjoy it. So when I reach that small goal, I'm going to be so happy. I am loving this rewatch and I am seeing so much in hindsight. It's really like watching a whole new show than the first time it aired, and I watched each week. Anyways, let's get into this episode. The episode starts with Mary explaining that the Browns are having a dinner party for their friends who aren't polygamists. Cody says they used to have a barrier between them and some of their friends at work who have never interfaced with them as a family because of this polygamy secrecy barrier. But now it's really cool because they are very open now that they are public. Mary explains that before the party, Cody will be taking her to the doctor because she has a family history with colon cancer and she has decided to see a gastroenterologist. Her sister Teresa was diagnosed with colon cancer when she was 31, and she found out that she had stage 4 cancer, and she passed away 11 months later. Mary says 2 days before her sister passed Teresa that she was going to beat this, and she didn't want to leave her 4 little kids. She was a second wife in a polygamist family, and her sister wife said that she would take care of the kids and raise the kids. And Teresa's youngest was just 4 years old. But Teresa's sister wife took the job on because she loves those kids and they love her. Robin says there's an unspoken rule about this subject if something were to happen to one of them. Robin says she would take another wife's children and raise them if anything were to happen to any one of them. And she says it's a given to her that she would take them because they're her kids too. If all of the Brown kids are her kids too, why wasn't Isabel still recovering from surgery at this time? Not allowed to visit Robin's house to see her dad and siblings, but the nanny was allowed in during the pandemic. If they are her kids too, why did she throw them under the bus on the tell-all, complaining that they don't accept her and she is distressed by them calling her to ask her to relax the rules so they can see their dad? She wasn't understanding of the way Cody's kids felt, and it frustrated her that they were calling her. And she felt as though the kids were taking on the views of their moms regarding their perception of her, as if their moms spoke ill of her or that encouraged resentment or frustration between herself and the older Brown kids. Because she's assuming that the kids can't think for themselves or that they don't have minds of their own, even the grown, almost adult ones and adult ones. She's suggesting that because the kids overhear their parents' perceptions of Robin, that they're adopting those perceptions, and then that's the reason why there's so much friction between her and all of the other kids, when really it's her behavior that's creating that. They get her number, they see what's up. It has nothing to do with how their moms feel. I mean, they might have gotten a little bit of the attitude from that, but the majority of it is them seeing what's up and understanding in their own mind and coming to their own thoughts. Kids don't only believe just what their parents think. They can see the situation for themselves and have minds of their own. It's not their parents swaying them. The kids are definitely old enough to see what's up and think for themselves. But Robin assumed the wives put these ideas and attitudes against her in the kids' heads, rather than the kids just thinking for themselves and seeing the way things are. As if the kids aren't highly intelligent with brains developed enough to decide how they feel about her. And she feels that's why she wasn't accepted. That's part of the reason that they blame her, that she's not accepted, whatever. Here she is saying she is their mom too. And God forbid anything happened to any one of their moms, that she was going to take them on and raise them. But she can't even be compassionate with them during a phone call. If your child calls you begging to see their father and explaining, please relax the rules, we know that you have a hand in this, should you get cross or angry or frustrated at them or blame others for their correct perception of you? Or would you not try to be understanding with those kids and broker some type of compromise or peace between them and their father? Robin was resentful instead when they called, and she was resentful of Cody's kids from his other wives, especially last tell-all when she called them out by name. And she played victim claiming she wasn't accepted by everyone. Yet here she says she is their mother, and God forbid someone passes in the family, she wants to be their caregiver. I don't even think the Brown kids would want to stay with her, God forbid, in that type of event, God forbid. They'd all want Janelle or Christine or Mary, but I doubt they'd pick Robin, who was only married to Cody around 5 months per season 2, episode 4. Janelle says, in a society that doesn't have a family structure like theirs, if both parents are not there anymore, the kids would go to a sister or a grandma, and she guesses that's one of the built-in things for them that they have other mothers in the family who would step in and take those children. Robin says for her kids, if something were to happen to her, it would get a little bit more complicated because her kids have a bio father besides Cody. For the first time ever, she's like admitting it and calling it out. She says her kids have a bio father besides Cody, Mary, Christine, Janelle, and herself. So it's a little bit different, unfortunately, for her. Christine says that makes her very sad. And she says, God forbid, if something, God forbid, happened to Robin, she would totally fight for Robin's kids. And I 100% believe that Christine would, and that it would be great for them to have a mother like her. Mary has recently been working with a cancer research organization, and having had a sibling die from colon cancer raises Mary's risk significantly. So Mary says there could be a serious issue and she has no idea. Mary says until it's progressed enough, colon cancer is not something that you have many symptoms of. And it's like that, I just want to point out, for a lot of types of cancer, for example, ovary cancer, occasionally you can get symptoms, but very rarely, even breast cancer. Many cancers, there are really virtually no symptoms at all. Cody takes Mary to her consultation appointment, and she doesn't know what it will entail. And he's very loving. I do have to say, he's on camera, but he appears to be very loving and very genuine about this. And I believe that he is. He holds her hand. He seems very caring. And Mary says she tries to be optimistic. She tries to think she's okay. Nothing's wrong. But there's always that chance, and you have no idea. And her sister had no idea. The doctor explains to Mary she is at a much higher risk because her sister passed away from colon cancer. So the doctor wants to screen Mary with a colonoscopy, where a camera goes up your rear, and if they find polyps, they will remove them. It's much like breast biopsy. I just want to say, and I want to encourage everyone to go get checked. This episode regarding, and it's not specifically colon cancer in my case, but this episode really reminds me of my own fears and anxieties regarding cancer, because I do have a BRCA gene, which means that I'm at like a sky high risk. They told me that based on having that gene and my family history, there is an 89% chance I will get cancer, particularly in my ovaries, because my mom did survive ovary cancer miraculously, also breast cancer. So I do have to go get checked actually many times a year. And the only other option would be getting me preventative surgeries. And I am considering that right now because I like a very simple life. I don't like going to the doctors all the time. I don't like dealing with that. So it's something that I'm considering very highly doing right now. So if you have a family history, and it might be genetic, like in my case, it might not be genetic at all, but the risk is higher. And this is something that can kill you without even knowing it's there. There could be no symptoms at all and everything can feel completely normal. And I know it's scary, and I know firsthand how much it sucks, but you have to go. And if your insurance won't cover the yearly tests or the genetic test, then push and complain and go to the trouble. Because if you can avoid cancer or catch it early, it's better than just sweeping it under the rug and not giving yourself a chance, especially if you know that it's in your family, or you know that it's a possibility genetically, it might be a thing. And if you can prevent it and avoid putting poison in your body to keep your life, prevent it, because the effects of all of that, really, it affects your immune system for the rest of your life. Even if you survive, it affects the quality of your life. the quality of your life after is going to be altered. Your immune system will never be the same again. I mean, that's poison. And yes, you keep your life, but it comes with a lot. And everyone should have a good life and the best life they could possibly have. And that's the only reason. I know that's a no fun subject and I'm sorry to mention it, but I just have to. That's my PSA. Go get checked, even if you're scared, even if it sucks. It's better than not having a life. So go get checked. And if your insurance tries to say that they don't cover the genetic testing or they won't cover this specific blood test or this specific thing before you're a certain age and you feel like you're at risk and you've gotten genetic results and they just don't cover something, push for it, do the paperwork and fight. And I mean, I believe healthcare should be free to everyone. It should be a human right, in my opinion. And this is not something that anyone should have to struggle to get or have obstacles to healthcare. It should be a human right, in my opinion. Okay. Back to the show. Once Mary realized how much greater her risk was, it brought a lot of realism into her world. Mary says, even though she has the colonoscopy scheduled, life still goes on, and they're planning the dinner party with their monogamist friends. Everyone meets at Robin's house. Christine says they are friends that they have known for a very long time, and each wife and Cody invited a few friends. Christine is getting out of the car with Truly, and Mary tells her, I don't know why you didn't leave her with Mariah. And Christine says she knows, but Truly has this cute new outfit. And Mary tells Christine that Truly is probably mad at her, probably because she's lugging her around when she could be sleeping at home. Christine explains that all the friends they invited are not in their faith. They're monogamists or they are not married at all. Christine says most of these friends knew them before they decided to tell them they were polygamists. Cody says they wanted to have a friendship appreciation dinner to thank their friends for being their friends in spite of the fact that they are a pariah. Christine, Mary, and Robin are moving Robin's furniture around to set up her living room, how it's going to be, where everything is going to be in place for this dinner party. They're setting up the tables. Mary says before they went public with their lifestyle, she really did keep people at a distance. She would be friends with them far away from her house. Robin says as a child growing up, she didn't ever talk about or share what she believed in. Christine's dad's dad, her grandfather, and this would be the head of her church also, as we learned from becoming sister wives. But anyway, Christine's dad's dad was put in jail for being a polygamist. So they had to be so quiet. Cody says it's hard to know who to talk to or who you felt safe with. He says you always wanted to test a person to find out if they were safe with it, and they lived this way for 20 years. Janelle didn't want to be labeled because if they know that you're a polygamist, they don't see you and they don't know you. Christine says when the kids were all younger, they were so nervous about it. There was a kid that was picking on McKelty one time, and Logan went and told the kid, hey, leave my sister alone. And then he realized what he'd done. And Janelle explains, Logan is her son, and McKelty is Christine's daughter, as we know. Christine says in Logan's mind, when he told this kid that McKelty was his sister, he thought that this kid would jump to the conclusion that they were a polygamist family, and that scared Logan. Janelle says their kids knew what everybody believed of families like theirs. The woman without a voice, the underage, all the things that everybody thinks of when they think about people in their lifestyle. Clearly that aged like milk. Do all the women have an equal voice to Cody and each other? Do all the voices matter and have the same weight? Is every woman as a wife to Cody considered and every voice heard? Are they all heard and are they Cody's equals? Does what they say matter to Cody and matter as much as what Cody thinks? And does what they say matter to Cody's choices? I don't think all the wives have a voice, and I don't think even if they can speak freely, what they have to say matters or would affect Cody's decisions at all. Look at how Cody handled his C-19 mandates. Look at how he lived monogamy with Robin and the way Cody handled the pandemic, despite some of his wives feeling differently than him about how it should be handled. Look how Cody removed intimacy from Mary a decade ago and how he removed intimacy in his marriage with Christine. Cody told Christine he wasn't interested in intimacy, and he knew he can get sex or intimacy at Robin's or Janelle's. And we know he wouldn't engage with Mary, so he's made that clear. So I'm not going to include her as an option. Cody knew that Christine has no other partner to go to for that connection, but he has other options. And when Christine said she needed intimacy, Cody suggested maybe she could change her behavior with her sister wives, meaning Robin. We'll see how you are with your sister wives, he said. And we all know he meant Robin. So does Cody hear his wives? Do they all have a voice? And even if they can speak freely, does what they have to say matter to Cody? What about the move to Flagstaff? None of the wives, other than Robin, wanted to move. They gave reasons why. And Cody insisted, regardless of what was best for the team and what everyone wanted, what the majority wanted, he said, where we go one, we go all. What about the courtship of Robin? What about that? Christine told Cody she feared he would replace his family with Robin and her kids. And she told him she didn't want him to leave for those weekends. She didn't want to add another wife. Janelle, too, expressed concern, wondering, as the primary breadwinner, how they would afford a woman with 3 kids and a whole separate rental. How they would afford that. How they could stretch the budget even more. How basically Janelle would afford that. And I know Cody said that he contributed, but I have a feeling Janelle probably took care of a lot of it. It was taking from a limited budget to fund another family, Robin's family's entire existence, and everything that they need to live. And Janelle knew this, and she didn't want Cody to proceed. The budget was already very limited, and everyone was going to get less so that Robin could be fully paid for and her kids could be fully paid for and they could have that rental and she could stay home and not work. Janelle expressed she didn't want to proceed. Christine expressed not being crazy about proceeding. Cody said he had a testimony from God. Mary felt it was spiritual, and that was all she wrote. Did all of the wives' opinions matter or affect Cody's decisions about the courtship at all? Or did Cody do what he wanted, basically? The wives that don't approve, they can accept adding Robin even though they are opposed to it, or they can divorce Cody. So are their voices heard, and do they really count? Mary and Cody established that relationship, and it was already way into it before Christine or Janelle ever even met Robin. And it was basically established and on its way to being a done deal before Christine ever met Robin. One other example regarding the wives' voices not being heard or being suppressed or disregarded or shoved down for Cody's best interests to paint him in a better light is the honeymoon example. When Robin got an 11-day honeymoon to paradise, and the wives got 3-day road trips that were reluctantly thrown together last minute to places like Wyoming to his parents' ranch and Montana, driving in the sticks for a few days, the wives were angry and hurt and sad and frustrated, and they couldn't understand why they felt like this. Then they admitted that their worlds revolve around Cody. They wait for their time with him, and they do mental gymnastics to explain their feelings. They try to explain away the disparity of the honeymoons, etc., and they refuse to really admit their true feelings. They act surprised by the depth of their suffering and the emotional roller coaster, by how shocked they are by the jealousy, the insecurity, and the anguish that they experience as Cody is away on their honeymoon. And they admit they each only got few-day road trips to his parents' ranch or to the sticks of Montana. With Christine, Cody didn't even bother planning a honeymoon. It never crossed his mind. So he very quickly, hastily threw her in a car, and they drove through the sticks of Montana. Robin got 11 days in San Diego crossing items off of her bucket list, or she calls it a life list. 11 days of uninterrupted time, something no wife or kid of Cody's ever got other than Mary, who was married to him monogamously for 3 years before they added wives. By the end of that episode, the honeymoon special, the wives went from feeling jealousy and anger to, Cody is so great. He really tailors things to what each wife needs. He customizes things special for each wife according to what they need. He's so great. He's so wonderful. That's how they started explaining away Robin's honeymoon versus theirs and pushing their feelings down. And they weren't heard. And they even did mental gymnastics to say otherwise and paint Cody in a good light. Is that what they said to save Cody's bacon? That Cody tailors everything to each wife? Or did they really feel betrayed, insecure, jealousy, feeling upset about the disparity and unfairness of it all? They shoved down their feelings and their voices and the emotions they danced around all episode to then conclude, Cody is so great. He tailors things to us. That's why Robin got the honeymoon. She got, and they got the road trips for honeymoons. So, are their voices heard? Do their voices matter? All the wives, do they all count and matter the same? Are their voices considered? Are their voices used for Cody to compromise? I don't think so. Janelle also said there aren't the underage girls like people think of typically when they think of polygamy. The we are not them theory over there on the compounds comparison. We aren't them over there on the compounds. We don't have the prairie dresses on. We don't braid our hair. But let's not forget, there was an underage girl. Per Becoming Sister Wives, Cody courted a 17-year-old minor, and they had to wait to get engaged to her until she turned 18. The wedding was called off 1 week before it was supposed to go on. But courtships are short. They're typically 6 months max, more or less, and typically they're even shorter. So if Cody and this girl courted for 6 months, let's say, and they had to wait for her to turn 18 to get engaged, that means she wasn't even about to turn 18 at the start of this. So Cody did court an underage girl, per Becoming Sister Wives, their memoir, and he had to wait till she was 18 to get engaged. But again, that was called off 1 week before the wedding. So there are underage girls, and the women didn't all have a voice. Maybe not in the stereotypical polygamy portrayed in the media or in the Brown family. Let's also not forget that Cody laments about losing control and not being the leader and wanting to be the head of the family, saying he is no longer the leader anywhere but Robin's house. But at the start of all this, Cody said it wasn't about ego. It wasn't about narcissism. He's not some narcissistic creep. This isn't about being macho. He says this in the interview with Natalie Morales. He could never tell his wives what to do, he says. But when Cody doesn't automatically get his way, he becomes less present with each wife and their kids. He manipulates, he neglects, he employs abusive tactics to try and force his way. And he labels any minor constructive criticism as disloyalty and disrespect. And one example of that is how he allows the adult kids at Robin's house to live under their roof, and he is happy to have them because they blindly obey his pandemic mandates. And he tried to push for Janelle to kick out her adult sons because they weren't able to follow his self-made COVID mandates that are more stringent than the CDC guidelines. He says they are 18 and he's done all he can for them. They should go. But Robin's kids can gladly stay at home because, in Cody's opinion, they respect him and Janelle's kids don't. Cody said his wives are obstacles to his goals in life. If his wives are obstacles to him, I doubt he does much listening to their voices. He says it's not about being macho, but every chance he gets, Cody mentions he's an alpha male. And I want to credit viewer Lisa, who reminded me of the time he announced at a guy's night to his friend, "You know, I'm an alpha male," and the time Mariah's dog peed on Cody's foot. And Cody said it's because he's an alpha male, like the marking of territory type thing. I've known alpha males and I've seen alpha males, and alpha males never have to announce it. They don't make announcements on camera and to their friends. Oh, I'm an alpha male. It's ridiculous to announce it. I'm sure in Cody's mind, that's how he perceives himself and that's how he wants to be perceived. But announcing it doesn't get others to perceive you that way as an alpha male as you perceive yourself. Alpha males never say it. It's obvious they are that way and they are naturally confident. They aren't constantly trying to announce it or prove it to the world. Cody says from day one of the show that this is about faith. That's why he lives this lifestyle. It's not anything to do with toxic masculinity or being macho or control. But why is Cody so concerned with coming across and defining himself, announcing every moment he can that he's an alpha male? If it's about faith, would you not be humble and authentic? The stereotype of an alpha male also connotes a sense of toxic masculinity. So why is Cody eagerly trying to say it's not about being macho and then announcing every chance he gets he's an alpha male? Cody said in the Natalie Morales special, it has nothing to do with control. In fact, he could never get away with telling his wives what to do. His wives would never, ever listen to him telling them what to do. Yet every episode, Cody is complaining, I'm not the head of this family. I'm not the leader. They don't listen to what I say. I don't feel they respect me. They're not obeying me. And he even praised Robin at the tell-all, saying that she was obedient. She obeys him. If you would never, this is not about control, and you could never control your wives. And your wives would never listen to what you say and just take it and do it and be a yes wife. Why are you then praising your wife for being obedient, for being an obedient wife, if it's not about control, if it's not about being the authority? Cody says they're much more subdued because each of them have had experiences where they have had 100% full rejection because they are different and people don't like what they don't understand. The wives are at Robin's house planning the party, and Mary seems to be the manager of the party planning committee. She tells Christine and Robin she would like to see 3 tables lined up, this way all touching. Robin is confused. She asks, how are they touching? During the party planning, the wives are discussing the menu, and Christine is on the phone with Cody, and he asks if there is anything they need. Christine tells him they'll call him if they need anything because they're still planning the menu. Cody says, thanks, bye. And Robin says, out of the blue, even though one says, I love you too. Then she asks Christine and Mary, did you guys all say I love you? So Christine goes reluctantly, oh, love you, even though Cody never said I love you. Mary reluctantly says, I love you. And Robin goes, thank you, gosh. She's acting very weird because Cody didn't say I love you at all on this speakerphone call with Christine. He said, thanks, bye. She said, I love you too. And she probably knew it was weird to shout, I love you during Christine and Cody's speakerphone call. She probably felt awkward because no one else said, I love you. Not even Cody first. He didn't even say, and I love you, to get an I love you back from her for her to say, I love you too. She just blurted it out and said it out of the blue. The wives didn't say, I love you. Cody didn't say, I love you. She just said, I love you too. She felt awkward about it because it was out of the blue and Cody didn't say, I love you first. So she then pushed the other wives to say, I love you, lying and saying she thought Cody said, I love you because she didn't want to feel bad about saying, I love you out of the blue when Cody didn't even say, I love you to her. Cody never said, I love you before she just blurted it out. And I think she knew it was against the etiquette for her to be telling Cody, I love you, or I love you too, on a phone call. And it's funny, like she's hearing voices because he never said, I love you. And I think she knew it was against the etiquette too to say it. And I think she imagined that she heard him say it, even though he didn't say it at all. Then when the call ends, Robin says, he said, I love you. And she said, I love you. And she tells Christine and Mary, who are sitting there, she didn't hear them say, I love you back. And then she said, they have to say, I love you back because he said, I love you. And she is sure it was a group I love you that he meant. And Mary and Christine tell her they didn't hear it. And it's because Cody didn't say it. They play the call. Unless they edited it out, Cody never said, I love you. He said, thanks, bye. She, out of the blue, awkwardly, embarrassingly said, I love you too, even though no one said, I love you. And then she said, guys, are you guys going to say, I love you? So Christine and Mary reluctantly say, they're like, I love you, very awkwardly. And then when she kind of explains what happened, and she does it in a very manic, nervous way, talking really fast, it's a very odd scene. Mary and Christine both say, we never heard him say it. So it was really funny that she's saying, I love you too, to nobody saying, I love you to her at all. I wonder if she's hearing things. Just was so cringe and uncomfortable watching her nervously explain to the wives why she pushed them to say, I love you back, saying an imagined group, I love you. He never said, I love you on that call. It's so bizarre. Both Christine and Mary acknowledge they never heard Cody say it. They didn't hear it at all. So Robin just said, I love you too, unsolicited to Cody, who was speaking to Christine on speakerphone. When Robin was trying to explain her bizarre behavior to the wives, she didn't even look them in the eye. Her eyes got really big. She was like gesturing wildly. She was looking like straight at the wall, and they were both sitting like right near her in the little bar in the kitchen. And she was literally looking past them at the wall, at the door, not even looking them in their faces as she's recounting the story. It's really weird. I think Robin knew that it was inappropriate to say, I love you. And she knew it was awkward to say, I love you too, when Cody never said, I love you at all. So she tried to include the wives in it to not look as stupid. And I think she also knew it was inappropriate. So she lied on the fly and concocted this quick little story that happened like right in front of the wives to try to get the wives to say, I love you too, to Cody, not even saying it. He never said, I love you, but she's saying she heard him say, I love you, and they didn't say it back when he never said it at all. They played the call unless TLC edited it out. It's so weird. And she must know that it's really inappropriate to, on a speakerphone call between Christine and Cody, jump in there and say, I love you to someone, saying, I love you too back to someone who didn't even say, I love you at all. And then telling the wives, when he said, I love you, he meant it for the group. And they're saying, well, I never heard him say, I love you. And Mary never heard it. Christine never heard it, but she said, I love you too back to a non-existent, I love you. So she must have heard, I love you. Is she hearing things? I want to know. It's just so weird. I just can't believe, like, she's lying seconds after something happened that happened in front of everyone, rather than just say, well, I always say I love Cody. I'm sorry, I got carried away and I thought I heard him say it. She then had to pretend he said it first and she was saying it back and get the wives to say it too, to an I love you. Two of the three wives didn't hear and imagined I love you. Cody never said it. But Robin didn't want to look stupid, and rather than just be honest that she thought he said it, he didn't say it, and she said, I love you too, to an imagined I love you, and that's inappropriate in itself because even though it's a speakerphone conversation, it's a conversation between Christine and Cody. She didn't want to be honest. So rather than being honest, she lied to everyone involved who it happened in front of everyone's faces and it happened on camera. And she tried to make up a narrative that he said, I love you, to try to get the group to say it so that she didn't look so bad. And I thought that was so just bizarre. Anyways, Robin says a lot of women, their first response to them is, oh, how can you do that? You must have no self-esteem. You're letting your husband, in their brains, as Robin puts it, cheat on you. Robin, Christine, and Mary head to the grocery store to do shopping for the party, and they see some army guys, and Christine tells Robin, hey, it's some of our good boys, and Robin asks if they should whistle, but Christine reveals she can't whistle. Robin says, when you get past that, this issue of, oh, are you low self-esteem, you're letting your husband cheat on you, she says, when you can get past all that, you see that they have a different way that they do things, but it's really all about the girl. And Robin says if a woman decides to let down her guard and embrace who they are, she is going to find it's a girl party. And Christine adds, all girls love girl parties. These women are like in their mid to late 30s, and this is how they're speaking. It's hilarious. There are scenes of Mary, Robin, and Christine messing around at the grocery store, looking like they're being silly, carefree, having fun, dancing in the aisles. Is it the kind of girl party for Robin where the mean girl comes out and shames her sister wife for not trying as hard as she was able to try in her first marriage, who is angry and frustrated at Christine for not trying hard with Cody when she tried for decades? That kind of girl party, that kind of girls club? Mary says they can have a lot of fun no matter where they go, even if it's just the grocery store. Cody asks, were you guys loud? And Christine tells him, a little. Janelle says she's listening to them talk about the grocery store, and that's why she doesn't go to the grocery store and why she conveniently works a lot. Because they are embarrassing to be with. Her sister wives are embarrassing to be with. Janelle says this is true, and things like what happened at the grocery store happen all the time. It's now the next morning at 5 a.m. on the day of Mary's colonoscopy. Cody checks on Mary and he seems very attentive. He's up, he's ready to go. He asks if she's hungry because you can't eat before one of those things, to my knowledge. Mary says her sister was diagnosed with colon cancer 6 years ago. And when she was diagnosed, they told her all of her siblings should get screened as well. And it's something Mary has put off for years, but she has always had it in the back of her mind. And I can say I know that feeling, not specifically with colon cancer, but with cancer. Christine says she was upset with Mary and she told her for years she needed to go get a colonoscopy. And Janelle was frustrated with Mary too because Teresa, Mary's sister's cancer, could have been caught early and she would potentially still be with them if it had been caught early. The doctor recommended that Teresa's family get checked because it was so rare, and he felt since it was so rare, there was a good chance there might be a genetic link. Janelle says even with all of that knowledge, Mary didn't get looked at. Janelle says this is something that you can't take lightly because it was horribly devastating. Mary goes to the colonoscopy to get checked for colon polyps or, God forbid, tumors because of their family history. Since Mary's sister was diagnosed with colon cancer, 4 of her siblings have had colonoscopies, and they have all had colon polyps, and that's a high number. Mary explains colon polyps don't always turn into cancer, but that's usually where the colon cancer comes from. So the fact that the colon polyps even exist boosts your risk of having colon cancer. Cody explains, when Teresa, Mary's sister, passed, it was tragic, and to potentially have your wife pass that way is a scary thing. Mary says if there are polyps, they will remove them and send them to be biopsied. If they are malignant, depending on the size and stage that they are, they will then start treatment. I want to credit Mary. She didn't have to raise awareness or do this very scary thing on camera, and she did. And I respect that 1,000,000%. Who knows how many women went and did what they avoided and potentially saved their lives. I have to commend her. I went to a biopsy before, and I went to genetic testing and ultrasounds for my ovaries. It's constant, more than once a year. And it is terrifying to know that there is a ticking time bomb inside you. So I think it's very amazing that Mary went and had this preventative screening filmed and raised awareness about it. I don't know if I could, and I think that she was very brave to do that, and I appreciate it. It's a very heavy and anxiety-laden thing to go through, and Mary did it with grace, and she was light and positive, and I really respect it. I think it's very amazing to raise awareness. Mary started to get nervous before the colonoscopy when she was sitting on the bed, and they were doing the typical vitals and blood pressure, and she says, you don't know what's going to happen in a situation like this. Cody says he and Mary never discussed what would happen if she had cancer. Mary says it's a situation of, I don't know, and I don't want to admit that there might be a problem. Cody comes into the room. He says the first thing that happens when you go into the endoscopy room is you see her there, and he wants to make sure she's okay. The doctor tells Cody things are going very well, and Mary is doing very well. There's a small polyp, and they remove it, and they send it to the pathologist. There's also another polyp they remove, and the doctor says they found 2 small polyps. They were able to remove them both, and they will send it to the lab and get results in a few days. Cody is being very loving. He's stroking Mary's hair. He's asking her if she's groggy. He's telling her she can sleep. The doctor comes in and tells Mary she did well. and Mary says it will be a couple of days to get her results for the polyps, and she's nervous about it, but the dinner party has helped get Mary's mind off of it. Cody says they wanted to have the friendship appreciation dinner because they have all of these non-polygamist friends that they wanted to have over for dinner. And Cody is shoveling the driveway as the wives are hauling stuff into Robin's house for the dinner. Cody asks Christine where the help is he was supposed to have as he's shoveling the driveway. Christine apologizes. She says she was supposed to have the boys shovel the walk, and she knew she was in trouble because there was Cody hacking away at the ice with a shovel, and he said he needed to do it all before it freezes. Cody chastises Christine. He says, "Do you realize we were supposed to have one of the children do this?" Christine tells Cody right now is not the time to talk. Christine explained she was already on the defensive because she thought Cody was just getting after her, so Christine ran inside and shut the door as Cody was shoveling frustratedly. Robin is cooking in the kitchen, and I wonder if she's making her bomb cheesecake or bomb lasagna she claims she makes. She says cooking is a very social event for women, and if you have everybody in the kitchen, it can be a lot of fun. Well, I recall a point of contention for the Browns was sharing a kitchen, and the wives preferred to each have their own kitchen when the Dargers said they liked sharing a kitchen one episode. Robin says she lives separately from everybody else and she doesn't live at the big house. So they're all over there having a good time together, and sometimes she feels lonely. Christine says sometimes they aren't having a good time together and sometimes they're all separate too. Robin says she just assumes they're always having a good time. Christine has decided they need to do this for Thanksgiving because this is fun, them all cooking in the kitchen. Christine makes ambrosia salad and she tries to get Robin to take a bite, and Robin says no, she's not doing it. She can't. I personally don't like it at all, so I don't blame her. Robin says she will barf, and she takes a spoon of ambrosia salad and she feeds Christine, telling her she's awesome. I might have international listeners who aren't familiar with that. Even in America, it's a very American type thing, and it's only like in certain areas. I don't personally care for it, but it's Cool Whip and sour cream and like drained mandarin oranges or pineapples, maraschino cherries, coconut flakes, marshmallows. You mix it all together in a bowl. It's not my thing. I rarely, if ever, agree with Robin, but on this, I'm gonna agree with her. I don't blame her for not trying it. Cody is carrying in chairs and tables. Robin says when Cody is not around, the flow goes better. It gets kind of tense when Cody is around because they're more careful about not hurting each other's feelings and not stepping on each other's toes. And they're careful about not showing Cody too much affection. Probably what she means is she has to be careful about not showing Cody too much affection because we know Janelle doesn't have that problem. Mary isn't overly affectionate in public, and neither is Christine, so I'm guessing it would be her that she's referring to. Robin says, you can get jealousy when he's maybe giving someone more attention than the rest, meaning the other wives get jealous when Cody shows Robin more affection in the group, I'm guessing. Mary is in her Americana flag apron to match her Americana sewing and craft room. She asks Cody what he thinks. Should it be one big table or 3 separate ones? Mary doesn't like 3 separate ones, but Robin does. And Robin says she and Mary have a really great relationship. And she and Christine have a really great relationship. It's like best buddies. Really, do you tell your best buddy who tried for decades to make her marriage work, you wish she could have tried as hard as you did in your first failed marriage, and that now her leaving Cody angers and frustrates you because the reality of the family won't jive with what you've idealized in your mind and posted on your vision board? Or will you be happy for your best buddy that she's freeing herself from less than she deserves and care more about her happiness in life than what you post on your vision board? If that's how Robin does her best buddies, what about her enemies? She probably has a closet full of voodoo dolls. Robin says when Cody comes in, it's no longer she and Mary focus on each other. It's all of a sudden they're both focused on Cody. Cody tells Robin only 2 tables will work if they do it her way, and she still thinks they should try. Robin says she can get jealous for sure. She says she and Cody are close and they love each other, but then she knows he loves Christine and Janelle and Mary too. And there are days when she can tell he's been talking to them or that he feels a closeness with them. And she has to be really secure with herself and with she and Cody for it not to bug her sometimes and make her feel insecure. It's the night of the party and the house is filling with guests. Robin is being really happy and cheerful and upbeat. Her complete tone and personality changes. It's to this completely like fake, artificial, sweet, gregarious tone. Cody finally came to the conclusion that he needed to be public from this one scripture where Jesus says, "Put your light on a candlestick, not under a bushel. Stop hiding who you are, be what you are." I don't know if this is 100% true or not, so I'm just going to say allegedly, because I'm going to be honest, I haven't verified this with receipts. But one of my viewers did say that Christine worked for a pro-polygamy organization, and basically TLC went to them looking for a polygamist family to film, and Christine told Cody, and Cody said, I want to do it. I want to do it. So that's basically how they got the show. I don't think Cody saw this passage in the Bible and became inspired by what Jesus said, put your light on a candlestick, not under a bushel. He's trying to make it biblical and prophetic, and my faith had guided me to get this show, and it was like divine, meant to be cosmic destiny that I got this show. But TLC went to this pro-polygamy organization that Christine volunteered for, worked for, whatever, and they said they wanted to do a show on polygamy, and she told Cody about it, and Cody said, get me in touch with TLC. I want to do it. We're going to do it. So it wasn't this faith thing. He wanted to do it. He wanted to be on a TV show. And now he's trying to make it like, oh, I read this passage in the Bible of Jesus, put your light on a candlestick, not under a bushel. And it let me know I don't want to hide in the shadows anymore. I'm like Jesus. I'm like Jesus. I have that kind of faith, and I'm guided by God, and God is guiding me. I'm going to do this show. Like, that's the type of vibe that gives. And I just want to point out that that is all alleged. It's hearsay, speculation. I don't have receipts. I don't know if that's true or false. It's just pure speculation. I don't have receipts to back that up, but that was something suggested to me by one of my viewers that is very insightful. Lorraine, she is an amazing viewer. She always leaves the most insightful and thoughtful comments. So whenever I use something that a viewer or listener of mine alerts me to or suggests to me, I'm always going to credit them. So this comes from Loco Vision. Christine reveals she absolutely loved being open with who her family is and all the people in her family and what they all mean to her. Cody stands and speaks to everyone. He announces that it's a friendship appreciation dinner. Janelle says she never told anybody about her lifestyle until they went public. And the day they went public, there was tons of gossip going on and people running back and forth to everybody's cubicle and staring at her at work. And there were a lot of people who had different relationships themselves or different family structures at work who supported Janelle. They approached Janelle and she describes it and says it was almost a camaraderie. Janelle's friend Mark says they hurried into the elevator, and as soon as the door shut, someone told him Janelle is a sister wife. And he sent Janelle a little message, and he told her he knew what was going on, and he was so excited. It's so cool. Smiley face, smiley face. Christine's friend Daniel was her boss, and she was his token polygamist friend. And it seemed like anytime he could introduce her as the plig, he did, and it was fantastic. Cody's friend looked at him one day and asked, "So how many wives do you really have?" Robin's friend is her best buddy from middle school. And that's how Robin describes it, her best buddy. They've known each other for about 20 years. Her friend says she had no idea that they were polygamists. And at the end of 7th grade, they were friends all year. and Robin told her she was a polygamist, and she started crying when Robin revealed it. Robin felt so bad when her friend was crying because she felt like she had lied to her, and she was so tired of lying to her. Her friend says it made them stronger because she was the only person who knew about Robin's family. And Robin loved her enough to share this secret with her that she wouldn't share with anybody. Daniel Christine's old boss says, "These are families just like the rest of America. It's our diversity." Cody does a toast to friendship. Cody and Mary go to get the colonoscopy results for the biopsied polyps. Cody says if the polyps are cancerous, then there's some real concern. And Mary says the fact that the colon polyps even exist boosts your risk of having colon cancer. Mary had no idea what to think. She was nervous and hoping that everything was going to be fine. The doctor has good news. The polyps they removed didn't have any cancer in them, and the polyp was the kind of polyp which, if not removed, might have gone on to become cancer, but they removed it completely. So Mary is in the clear. This is why I encourage everyone, go get screenings, do whatever you have to do according to your family history. Because if Mary hadn't gone and removed this polyp back then, God forbid, God only knows like what would it turn into. And that's where the cancer in the colon originates. So if they hadn't removed it, it probably, God forbid, would have turned into cancer and progressed. So that's good. Cody says, what a breath of fresh air, because immediately the doctor said everything was okay to Cody and Mary. The doctor says they can wait for 3 years before doing another colonoscopy. Mary says this made her realize how fragile life can be. And that is so true. Cody tells Mary he should appreciate all of their time together, and Mary tells Cody she does. If Cody says he should appreciate their time together, does that not imply he doesn't? That does it for this episode. To all my YouTube viewers, if you could please like and subscribe and tell me your thoughts on all things Sister Wives down below in the comment box. I would love that. I'll be back next week for a Christmas episode, season 2, episode 7, entitled The Brown Family Decision, where they first mention the move to Vegas. And if I recall correctly, Mary slams into the side of the cabin when they are sledding. Thankfully, she was okay, but it jars me every time just hearing it. It was so, the noise when she smashes into the side of the cabin, I remember it was so loud. Like I remember it to this day. I'll also be back with episode 6 of Becoming Sister Wives Book Club, covering chapter 4, Robin and Cody. No doubt it'll be a good one filled with sarcasm galore, I'm sure. And my guess is, and I don't know yet, it might be a 2-parter. We'll have to see. I have a feeling I'll have many, many thoughts. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next week. Bye.